Tonight, if something threatened your child, you'd call for help. You'd lock a door. You'd dial a number. But a million years ago, none of that existed. No walls, no locks, no police. Just open savanna, total darkness, and predators that could outrun, outclimb, and outfight you in every possible way. And yet, here you are. Every single one of your ancestors survived long enough to reproduce. Not one of them was taken before they had children. That is a perfect survival record across a million years of genuine, daily, mortal danger. So how did they do it? How did early humans protect the most vulnerable thing in the world, a human infant, in one of the most dangerous environments that has ever existed? The answer changes everything we think we know about family, instinct, and what made us human in the first place. Let's start with the problem. Because most people don't understand how severe it actually was, a human baby is, by any biological measure, absurd. A newborn giraffe can run within hours of birth. A wildebeest calf can keep up with the herd in days. A human infant cannot hold up its own head. It screams constantly. It cannot regulate its own body temperature. It is completely dependent on adults for everything, for years. Evolutionary biologists call this secondary altriciality. It means humans are born earlier in their development than almost any other mammal relative to how long they'll eventually live. Why? Because of our brains. Human skulls grew so large, so fast in evolutionary time, that if babies developed fully in the womb, they couldn't pass through the birth canal. So we're born early, born unfinished, born helpless. And for a small group of early humans living on the African savanna, surrounded by lions, leopards, hyenas, crocodiles, and rival groups of hominins, a screaming, helpless infant was a liability that could get everyone killed. So the first and most important defense was something no other primate had developed to the same degree: cooperation. Here's something most people don't realize about early humans. They didn't raise children in isolated pairs. The idea of a mother and father alone raising a child is an extremely modern invention. For most of human prehistory, children were raised by the group. Anthropologists call this cooperative breeding, or alloparenting. Allo means other parenting. The child's survival was a collective responsibility. In modern hunter-gatherer groups, our closest living model for how our ancestors lived, researchers have found that mothers spend less than half their time as the primary caregiver to their own infant. The rest of the time, the baby is held, fed, soothed, and protected by grandmothers, aunts, older siblings, cousins, and unrelated women in the camp. Studies among the Fa people of the Congo found that infants are passed between an average of 8 different caregivers per hour. Not per day, per hour. This isn't neglect. This is the original safety net. And one group mattered more than any other: grandmothers. The grandmother hypothesis is one of the most compelling ideas in evolutionary biology. Here's the puzzle it tries to solve. Human women live decades past menopause. No other primate does this. Female chimpanzees remain fertile almost until death. So why did evolution allow human women to live so long after they stopped reproducing? The answer, researchers believe, is that postmenopausal grandmothers were so valuable to the survival of their grandchildren that evolution selected for their longevity. A grandmother who spent her days foraging for food and protecting her daughter's children increased the survival rate of those children dramatically. She freed up the mother to have more children sooner. She passed down knowledge: which plants were safe, which animals were dangerous, which seasons brought floods. In a 2012 study, anthropologist Kristen Hawkes at the University of Utah showed through computer modeling that the presence of grandmothers could explain how early human lifespans extended so dramatically in such a short evolutionary time. Grandmothers weren't just helpful. They were, arguably, the reason the human species survived infancy as a species at all. But cooperation only gets you so far. You still need physical protection. And here is where early humans face their most brutal challenge. We are not impressive animals. A cheetah can run 70 miles per hour. A gorilla is roughly 6 times stronger than an average man. A Nile crocodile can bite with 3,000 pounds of force. Early Homo erectus, our ancestor from roughly 1.8 million years ago, stood about 5.5 feet tall, had no claws, no venom, no armor, and couldn't sprint faster than about 12 miles per hour. So how did they protect their children against things that could tear them apart without effort? The first answer is height. For most of the night, early humans didn't sleep on the ground. They slept in trees. The fossil evidence suggests that early hominins retained the ability to climb trees far longer than we once assumed. Their shoulder structure, their foot anatomy, their limb proportions, all of it points to creatures still spending significant time off the ground. Trees were the original fortress. A leopard can climb, yes, but it can't carry both the prey and its own body weight up a thin branch in the dark. Not reliably, not if the group is awake and making noise. Which brings us to the second line of defense, group noise. This is something modern people find hard to take seriously, but the evidence is overwhelming. Predators, even large ones, avoid groups that are loud and vigilant. The moment a sentinel spots a threat and raises an alarm, the calculus changes entirely for a predator. A lion hunting alone will not attack a group of 12 adults who are screaming, throwing branches, and moving toward it. The risk of injury is too high. Lions hunt by stealth and ambush. Remove the stealth, and the predator moves on. Early human groups posted sentinels. Studies on modern hunter-gatherer groups and observations of great ape communities both show that certain individuals orient themselves outward, watching the perimeter, especially at dusk and dawn, the 2 hours when predators most commonly hunt. Infants were kept at the center of the group, surrounded by bodies. And then there was the third defense, the one that changed everything: fire. Once early humans had consistent control of fire, roughly 1 million years ago based on evidence from sites like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, the protection of the young changed entirely. Fire does something almost magical in an ecological sense. It creates a hard boundary. Predators that hunt by scent and navigate by darkness are deeply, instinctively averse to fire. Not just cautious, averse. Researchers observing large predator behavior in the wild have documented that lions, leopards, and hyenas will almost never cross an active fire line. A circle of fire around the sleeping group is, for all practical purposes, an impenetrable wall against almost every ground predator on the African savanna. But fire did something else for the protection of children that people rarely talk about. It extended the hours that adults stayed awake. Before fire, darkness meant sleep. After fire, groups could sit awake for 2 to 3 hours after sunset, talking, watching, keeping guard. And those extra hours of collective wakefulness during the most dangerous part of the night, the first hours after dark when predators are most active, may have saved more infant lives than almost any other single development in human history. And then there was the most powerful protection of all: teaching. Children who survived were children who learned. Which plants are toxic, which animal sounds mean danger, how to read the wind, how to behave around the fire, how to climb quickly when you need to. This knowledge didn't get passed down in formal lessons. It happened in stories, in play, in observation. Developmental psychologists have found that children's play, universally, across every human culture ever studied, simulates the exact challenges their environment will require them to face. Children in hunter-gatherer groups play at hunting, at gathering, at building shelters, at climbing. The play is not random, it is practice. And embedded in that practice is the collective knowledge of every generation that came before. The lion can kill the child who doesn't know to be afraid of it. Knowledge, passed through culture, is a defense as real as any wall. So here is what it actually looked like. 1 million years ago, on a night in East Africa, a group of perhaps 25 to 40 people settles near a rocky outcropping as the sun drops. The children are gathered toward the center. Older women, grandmothers, position themselves close to the youngest infants. A fire is built and maintained. 2 or 3 adults sit at the edges, watching and listening. The group is never fully silent. Low conversation, movement, the crackle of fire, all of it signals to anything out in the dark: we are here, we are many. We are awake. In the branches of nearby trees, escape routes have already been scouted. Everyone knows which tree they run to if the fire isn't enough. And in the middle of all of this, a mother nurses her child. She is surrounded on all sides by people whose survival is bound to hers. Her mother is 3 feet away. Her sister holds the baby while she eats. The child doesn't know any of this. The child just feels warm and held and safe. That feeling, safety, warmth, surrounded by others, is the oldest thing you carry. It is encoded so deep in your nervous system that you still feel its absence when it's gone. The anxiety of isolation, the calm of being held, the specific comfort of falling asleep near other people. That's not psychology. That's a million years of survival, still running in your blood. We built cities. We built hospitals and vaccines and child safety seats. We put locks on every door. And somewhere along the way, we convinced ourselves that raising children is a private matter, handled behind closed doors by two people, mostly on their own. But every time a community rallies around a struggling family, every time a grandmother shows up without being asked, every time a neighbor watches someone else's child for an afternoon, that is the oldest human technology there is. The thing that kept us alive wasn't a wall. It wasn't a weapon. It was each other. It always was.